What's up, guys? It's Coach Grant with First Down Training, and today we're going to be breaking down something that we feel all wide receivers need to understand when it comes to running routes against specific defensive coverages, leverages from DBs, and how you guys can choose the correct plan off the line of scrimmage. So I hope this video helps you guys out. We're going to be going over some positive and negative examples of route running. But also, fellas, if you're a wide receiver and you want to get better at reading defenses, recognizing coverages, and how to structure your routes against each specific defensive look, check out that very first link in the description below where you can get access to a 40-minute long video on how wide receivers can read defenses. We go over every single route on the route tree versus each specific defensive coverage. So if you feel like that's something that'll give you some value, check out that very first link in the description below. Let's get started. So now, first route is going to be a fade route. So this is a bad example of a fade route. This is what you do not want to do against an inside leverage press coverage DB. And then we're going to talk about how you guys actually want to attack inside leverage. But first, when we come off the line, any type of route that you run, fellas, this is what I'm a believer in, is that when you have inside leverage, that DB is not going to give it up, especially if he's a disciplined DB, especially if he's a good DB. That's something that a lot of wide receivers don't understand. They think that they'll be able to attack this guy, take the inside release. This guy's sole purpose when he is inside shade is to force you to the sideline. So we have to make sure that we take what he gives me, and that is the outside. Now, if you're familiar with this page, you hear me say that over and over and over again. But now what people will do is they'll just take off and go run to the outside. So they'll have this inside leverage, and they'll think, oh, if I have to run this fade route, I got to run an out route, a comeback. I'm just going to go take off and try to beat him with speed outside because he's inside leverage. That is exactly what the DB wants you to do. So what Golladay does right here off the line is he just takes off and runs, right? But when you just take off and run, you are telegraphing where you are going to this DB. You're just letting him know, okay, I have no threat of him going to the inside as of right now. So I'm going to get hands on him or just squeeze him with my body and force him all the way to that sideline. Because when you could force this wide receiver to the sideline, you see these are the bottom of the numbers. The sideline is over here. That is a very, very tough throw for the QB. Look at where Golladay started. He started pretty much fairly close to the bottom of the numbers. I would like to stay on that straight line so I have some space for the QB to throw me open. When it comes to press releases, when it comes to organizing your plan off the line, it is all about knowing the spacing of the play that the quarterback needs and not running into other receivers or the sideline. So we cannot do that. So let's say, what should he have done right here? Because his DB's inside shade, let's threaten him where he doesn't want me to go. Maybe we come off the line and maybe we close the space a little bit. We attack his midline. I give him a fake inside so I could take the outside release. Fellas, you have to understand how to organize your routes just as much as you understand the technique. We could go over technique stuff all day long. We could talk about that for hours and hours and hours. Foot placement. This release is great when you do this. If you're not here, this release isn't going to work. But if you don't know when to use it, you don't know how to properly attack a leverage, and you can stick with 4 to 5 different releases to use, you will not be successful off the line. You have to understand that as a receiver. So let's play this full speed, and then we'll talk about a positive example of a running back actually attacking inside leverage. So make sure, fellas, we do not get squeezed to that sideline. So here we got Leonard Fournette, and he's going to be running like an in route. So he's going to be running like a 5-yard in. Maybe it's like a choice, if you will, but it's more so like a 5-yard in. Now, we got a linebacker lined up inside shade and man coverage. Fellas, just because it's a running back and a linebacker, not a DB and a wide receiver, does not change a thing. It is still football. It is still leverage. It is still coverage. And so linebackers work on their coverage just like how DBs work on their coverage. Not as much, obviously, and they're not as talented, but we still got to be able to understand how to win against a specific look. So Fournette here, because it's a 5-yard in, easily could try to just square up this DB and break in front of him and run the in. But why is that a problem? Because that DB is not going to allow that to happen, or this linebacker is not going to allow that to happen. If you attack his leverage and you threaten him in, or he thinks you're threatening him inside, what do you think he's going to do? He's going to keep his leverage. Fellas, you got to understand what the DB, linebacker, safety, what their responsibilities are. You have to think like a defender. So let's play this full speed. So Fournette does a great job of showcasing what can happen when you attack leverage, just like he did, and take the release that the DB gives you. So think about his specific route here, right? He's running this 5-yard in. Imagine if, so let's say the running back's running like, let's draw up a play here. Let's say quarterback's here, running back's here. Let's say the slot receiver's here, whatever. So let's say he's running like maybe a 10-yard cross. And then you got a linebacker who's in man coverage on the running back. But you've tried to force the inside release when he's inside leverage. And he reroutes you, and you end up almost collisioning the slot receiver. That can screw up the timing with the quarterback, and that can screw up the flow of the play. You might be that choice route might be isolating a defender and taking him out of the play to set up the slot's route. But if you screw up your spacing on the route, the whole play is screwed. So you have to understand spacing. You need to be able to stay in the straight line just like how the play play is drawn up. So we take what the linebacker gives us or the DB gives us. So Fournette, what he does here is you see how he squares up this DB and he threatens him to the inside right here. He attacks his leverage. He's actually going and threatening him where the linebacker doesn't want him to go. Now, you know why the linebacker's so anxious? Because he's in man coverage. He doesn't have any help over there. So the second we start to sell like I'm going to the inside, that's what's going to get him to move. Everybody's biggest nightmare as a wide receiver is, oh, well, coach, well, what if I do this release and he doesn't move? Well, if you do that release wrong and incorrectly and you don't actually threaten him, yeah, he probably won't move. But if you can actually threaten him like Fournette does, actually move off of his platform, actually go outside of his frame to threaten him and your upper body sells the movement, that will get him to move. And then you see, what does he do? He restacks. Restacks very tight, which is another reason why a lot of guys don't get separation on this. So, like I said, some people struggle with taking what the wide receiver or taking what the DB or the linebacker or the safety, whoever's manned up, taking what they give them. A lot of people struggle with it when they have an inside breaking route, right? We talked about in the first example of fade. You don't want to just take off and run because then you're going to get rerouted. Then we talk about, okay, well, you don't want to try to cut in front of the guy because he's just going to reroute you to the middle of the field. So you want to take what he gives you. Attack him, then take what he gives you. But the mistake a lot of guys will make is they'll attack this guy, they'll get him to jump, and then they take this super wide angle because they're trying to avoid a collision. They're trying to avoid this linebacker or DB getting hands on them. So when you take that wide angle, that just gives him space to recover. Like, let's say the depth, watch where he breaks this thing off. He's breaking this thing off right here. Let's call it like 10-yard line, for example. Let's call it like the 20-yard line. So if my break is at the 20 and I make this cut and I get him to jump, but I take a wide angle because I'm trying to avoid, he's got a better angle from this spot to get to the 20-yard line than we do. I'm taking a wide angle. You're just giving him space to recover. So when you attack that leverage and you take what he gives you, you have to go almost hip to hip with this linebacker or DB. You attack him off the platform, you're hip to hip. Because when you're hip to hip, you can push up vertical, still gain depth. You may have to fight the hands, but now at least he's trailing you. And when he's trailing your back hip and you're pushing vertical and you have spacing on the route and you have space to actually run out of the break without screwing up the spacing of the play, that is how you win. That is how you get open, fellas. So you have to trust yourself, take what the DB gives you, but have that technique of a tight restack to win on the break. That goes for anything. Even if he's running an outside breaking route, you still want to make it look the same because you want to make all of your routes look the same. Let's play this thing again, full speed one more time. Great job by Fournette, threatening his leverage to the inside, getting him to move off the platform, then restacking at a tight angle. Linebackers, running backs, receivers, DBs, safeties, guard and slots, it's all the same when it comes to leverage, fellas. Okay, so now we talked a little bit about inside shade. So what about outside shade? Why would a DB ever play outside shade? How do I approach outside shade, especially when it's press or maybe it's like press bail? So why would a DB be outside shade? I'll play the clip in a second. But why would he be outside shade ever? Because he probably has help to the inside. He's probably expecting an outside breaking route because the wide receiver's split is closer to the lineman. And again, maybe that's just the type of coverage it is. Maybe it's like cover 3. Maybe it's, sometimes it could be cover 2. But he's expecting inside route, wants to force you where? To his safety help. So when that DB was inside shade, his help was the sideline. When this DB's outside shade, his help is the safety. You guys have to understand this as a wide receiver. Because if you don't understand it, you're never going to know when to use a specific release, use a specific move. You're going to be confused. And when you're confused as a receiver, it's not good. That's bad. That's very, very, very tough because you're going to be playing slow. So let's play this full speed. So this DB's outside shade. He's in this like kind of press bail look, and we're able to threaten that blind spot and get separation on this pass. So Allen Robinson, he was known for not being the fastest guy. Or he is known maybe. He ran like a 4.6 something at the combine, which is not slow, but for the NFL, it's slow, right? But he's still able to get separation. He's actually one of the top receivers in the game. Why is that? Because the way he runs routes is very, very intelligent. He has the IQ to run the routes. He knows how to attack a DB's leverage. He knows how to stack. He knows how to stay skinny. He knows how to do these things, and that makes up for a lack of maybe athleticism that some DBs have on him. Some DBs have that leg up with athleticism. So he's outside shade. He's got to run an outside breaking route like an out route. So what does he do? He doesn't try to force it. He doesn't try to just release outside. He's got a DB who's lined up outside shade press. He doesn't try to attack him and then force the outside release because that DB's not going to give up the outside release. His help is not to the outside. Especially if a wide receiver has his split cut down, he's got a lot of space out there to work. He's not just going to let you go. So we usually have to take what he gives me. Because if I'm running an out route and I got outside shade and I break this thing off and I make my cut, like he ends up slipping to the blind spot and then breaking it off. But when he takes that release, you see how he takes the inside. He's leaving himself room to run out of the break. That's what I'm trying to say here, fellas. You have to leave yourself room for the quarterback. And again, it brings me back to my very first point. It's all about spacing and it's all about timing. So when he slips underneath, now he's operating in the blind spot. And when you're in the blind spot, that can get you a lot of separation, especially when you know how to use it against a specific leverage. His job in press bail, keep everything in front of him. So if you're in that blind spot and you're threatening vertical, what do you think he's going to do? He's probably going to try to bail out of there. He's probably going to try to bite on a specific route, and we can win by just pure deception and knowing how to structure my route. Let's play this thing again, full speed one more time. So again, fellas, take what the DB gives you. You guys have to understand that your separation comes at the top of the route. Let's play it again, full speed. Great job by Robinson attacking inside shoulder at first and then getting to that blind spot to win on that outside breaking route. All right, fellas, I really want to thank you for watching. I really appreciate it. If you guys have any questions at all, don't hesitate to leave those in the comment section below. Always appreciate the feedback. It's always great to hear from you guys. And again, fellas, if you'd like a 40-minute long video on how wide receivers can read defenses, check out that very first link in the description below. I'll see you guys next time.